Thank you all for staying for our final session of the evening, our Earth to Hip Hop session. We have 4 dynamic panelists who will talk to you all about climate justice as it relates to technology, policy, and storytelling.
Hip hop culture has given voice to generations of activists who have tapped into this connection to societal issues and thus organized and mobilized communities. Hip hop advocacy combines politics, community organizing, and so many different ways. So how do you all use hip hop in your work fighting for equity and environmental justice?
Sure. First off, thanks for having us here today. By way of introduction, my name is Darren Harris. I'm the founder of Pan TV. That's what this is. Pan TV stands for the Pan African News Network. And what it is, it's an app on your phone. We're on Android and on Apple. But it's basically a Black Instagram. You can create profiles, upload stories, videos, and pictures about what's happening in your community. Now, we created it so that we could unite the diaspora. We're live in 176 different countries, so we want to tell the story of African Americans, people on the continent, Caribbean, South America, and wherever. And we found a lot of traction already in Brazil, United States, Ghana, and Nigeria. So please go in the App Store, download Pan TV. Hip-hop is global, right? And it started in the Bronx, but it really reverberates across the entire world. So what we built was a media network. And on that media network, we allow people to upload those stories and videos and music that they're creating so that they can do something to change their communities. And I think a lot of the unnoticed music goes unnoticed, right? Like the stuff in the neighborhoods that doesn't get a reach. So what we did was we provided a platform for those underground artists to put something up and try to spread that news, because if they do it on the mainstream platforms, they don't really get the feature that they would on a Black-owned platform that's focused on them. So that's how we integrated hip-hop into Pan TV.
Hi, I'm Allison Finch Wilson, and I'm the founder of This is Climate Conscious, which is a recently launched initiative to do a better job of telling climate change stories to communities around the world in a way that inspires action. My experience is over a decade in journalism and then another decade in sustainability, climate change, climate equity, and circular economy communications. So I think just generally speaking, hip-hop transcends our community and reaches the world. It connects with people in so many different ways, whether it be through the music itself and then by extension of that, fashion or makeup or any other number of things. So when we're talking about hip hop, we're talking about very influential artists. And I think as a storyteller, when I think about reach and engagement and inspiring action, hip hop offers a really bountiful pot, if you will, of people that can help to carry the narrative. And so an example of that, in one of my jobs, I used to work for former Virginia Governor Terry McAuliffe, and when he was running for governor, he had like a very small connection with will.i.am from the Black Eyed Peas. But for some reason, will.i.am decided to come campaign with us. And that alone, I mean, increased the number of people who showed up to rallies by 700%. So that's the power of hip hop, I think. And so for This is Climate Conscious, I think one of the things that we're going to do is try to catalyze hip hop artists to help get them excited about telling climate change, environmental justice, and climate justice stories by making it really resonate in their soul. So they want to, what's the metaphor I'm looking for? Carry water for this issue because they're so inspirational and can reach so many people. So I think that's the role that hip hop plays in storytelling more broadly and then specifically with This is Climate Conscious.
Thank you for that. And I see a growing thread here where we're talking about building out voices that are oftentimes not at the table, and also how hip hop can help influence that. Do you think that hip hop artists are doing enough? And if not, what can they do more of to support environmental justice and environmental advocacy and also climate justice?
Sure. So I'd have to say they're not doing enough. And when I think about it and think about what we've been through over the last couple years, think about in terms of environmental justice, think about the water crises that we've seen in Baltimore, in Flint, in Newark, New Jersey. I haven't heard any rap songs about that, right? Like, think about back in the 70s when you had the R&B singers creating songs that spoke about the struggle that they were going through. You don't hear much about that in hip hop nowadays. You have some like My Son who goes into events when something's happening, but I do think in terms of environmental justice, I think that hip hop artists could do more. I think that creating songs about it would be helpful. I think putting some money behind it would be helpful, but I just haven't seen that, so I'd say they could do more.
I'd agree with that. I think that there are amazing opportunities available to partner with community organizations. Every hip hop artist is from a hometown, and in my experience, every community has a environmentally focused, community-based organization that is in a frontline community. And what we're talking about is communities that are on the front lines of climate change. These are the communities that are going to face are already facing disproportionate climate impacts. So I think a lot of times they may be disconnected from the issue in a sense that maybe they don't understand it completely. And also, there have been studies that show that the issue of climate change, while it is the biggest issue, the biggest crisis of our generation, it can be so overwhelming that people tend to just stick their head in the sand. It's like, oh, what can we do? Stick your head in the sand. Well, there are lots of things that you can do, especially in these frontline communities that are Black and brown communities and look like the artists who are creating this music. So I think engagement is an important piece of this to try and get them to better understand climate change. And not as I think a lot of times people think about climate change as something that's gonna happen to the polar bears in 2050. They don't think about climate change in terms of a kitchen table issue, meaning your Cheerios are gonna cost 3 times as much because it's so much hotter, our food supply is going to be impacted. Wheat can't grow. So I think, again, from a storytelling perspective, that's why we have to do a better job of telling these stories and targeting these artists so that they naturally want to get engaged and help move the needle on engagement at a broader scale.
So I'm going to go a little differently and sort of disagree with some of the panelists here. I think that artists, and it's something that Rev said last night actually to the main plenary, but like the music is strong when the culture is strong. And so artists come through when the people say that they need them to come through. Like when there's like the uprising happening here in Baltimore, when there are issues with the water crisis in Flint, artists responded to that when it got to the bubbling level that whether it was Black Twitter, whatever else was telling them, it's like, this is something we need to respond to. So I don't put the entire onus on them. I mean, artists of today do things, whether it's in, sustainable fashion, trying to keep their festivals like plastic free, things like that. But, until we tell them, here is the crisis that we need y'all to focus on, it's on us as a whole because they're not separate and away from the community. They're part of the same community, so they need to respond. They're needing and looking to respond to the things that we tell them as a whole to respond to.
Well, I think hip-hop artists have been really instrumental in raising awareness for really important climate-linked problems, and in general, just problems that face frontline communities, African-American communities around the country. I mean, you can look at Flint, Michigan, and see where hip-hop artists got involved to raise awareness for the lead toxicity in the water in Flint. I think that artists also do a great job when they're having music festivals and concerts of looking at sustainability. I think over the years, we've seen so many pictures of when a concert is over and a bunch of bottles and cans littering an arena floor or a stadium, the grounds of a stadium. And, more recently, we see artists taking responsibility for that and looking for ways for their event to have a lower carbon footprint and generate less waste. So I think we have a unique and amazing opportunity to further involve hip hop artists and make sure that they really understand the effects of climate change, particularly on Black and brown communities, and get them engaged in helping us catalyze people to take action.